If I had left my house 5 minutes later that day, I would still believe I had the perfect marriage. Sometimes life doesn't want you before it changes. It doesn't send you a message. It doesn't give you a sign. It simply lets one ordinary moment become the reason your whole world falls apart. And this is how mine did. That Tuesday morning looked exactly like every other Tuesday. The alarm rang at 6 a.m. I ignored it. My husband laughed and said, "If you don't wake up now, you blame it on Lagos traffic instead of yourself." I threw a pillow at him. He caught it. We both laughed. That was us. We laughed over the smallest things. People always said we looked happy. And to be honest, I believed we were. We had been married for 6 years, no children. Not because we didn't want them. Life simply hadn't given us that blessing yet. But still, we had each other. Or at least, that's exactly what I believed. He went into the kitchen. A few minutes later, I smelled fried eggs and toasted bread. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. That was just who he was. Every Tuesday, he made breakfast because he knew mornings weren't my best friend. Little things like that made me fall in love over and over again with him. While we ate, he talked about work. A client had been stressing him for weeks. I told him he worried too much. He smiled. "That's why I married you," he said. "You worry enough for both of us." I rolled my eyes, and very funny. If someone had walked into our house that morning, they would have seen a normal couple, a happy couple. Nothing looked broken. Nothing felt wrong. Looking back now, I realize the most dangerous lies are the ones that look like peace. By 7:30, we were both ready to leave. He kissed my forehead, picked up his car keys, and just before walking out, he turned back. "Don't forget your lunch," he said. And I laughed. "You're starting to sound like my mother." And he said someone has to. And then he left. I stood by the window for a moment and watched him drive away. I had no idea that would be the last time I would watch him leave the house without questioning who he really was. A few minutes later, I locked the front door and headed to my own car. I had barely started the engine when my phone rang. And boom, it was my older sister. Normally, I would have ignored the call because I was running late already. But something in me told me to answer the call. She reminded me about our mother's birthday dinner that weekend. We laughed about who was bringing the food and all that. She complained that our younger brother still hadn't confirmed if he was coming. Anyway, nothing serious. It was just a family talk. So, 5 minutes, and that was all. Exactly 5 minutes. When the call ended, I drove off without thinking twice. If I hadn't answered that call, I would have reached my office much earlier, and none of this story would ever exist. And then about 20 minutes later, I remembered something that made my heart sink. My office keys. I had left them on the dining table. I almost turned back, and then I remembered my husband kept a spare set in his office because this wasn't the first time I would be forgetting my office keys. His office was only a few streets away from mine. I would surprise him, so I thought. Maybe we would even grab a coffee together before work and all that. Funny how life lets you make innocent plans while it's preparing you for something completely different. His office building had a small cafe, across the road. I parked there. The place wasn't crowded. People sat quietly with their laptops. A waiter wiped down empty tables. Someone was laughing near the entrance. Everything looked ordinary until I looked through the glass. that's through the window glass, and saw my husband. I frowned. He wasn't supposed to be there. He had told me he had an early meeting. He had complained about being late, yet here he was, relaxed, smiling, holding a cup of coffee. And then across him sat a woman. She looked to be our age, elegant, confident, the kind of person who didn't seem uncomfortable being around there. She wasn't checking her phone. She wasn't looking around. She looked completely at home. The way she smiled at him wasn't the smile people give to their colleagues. It wasn't even a smile of an old friend. It was familiar, comfortable, intimate. I told myself not to jump into conclusions. Maybe she was just a client, or maybe I was overthinking. Then she reached across the table and held his hands. I felt something go cold. Not angry, not yet, just cold. I wanted to storm inside and demand an explanation. Throw my wedding rings on the table, but something stopped me. I don't know what. Maybe instinct. Instead, I stepped behind a parked SUV where they couldn't see me, and I watched. The waitress brought another plate. My husband cut a piece of pancake, placed it on the fork, and held it towards the woman. She laughed before taking the bite. It wasn't just breakfast anymore. It looked like a family. And then I noticed something else. His wedding ring. It wasn't on his finger, and then I blinked. Maybe I was mistaken. I looked again. No ring. The man who never took off his wedding ring wasn't wearing it. And then my breathing became shallow. My hand started shaking. I reached out for my handbag and pulled out my phone. I needed the proof. Even if no one else believed me, I needed to know I wasn't imagining things. I opened the camera, zoomed in. Just as I was about to take the picture, I heard tiny footsteps. A little girl, not older than 6 years, came running towards the cafe. She rushed straight to their table. Without hesitation, she jumped into the arms of my husband, as if he had done it 1,000 times before. He kissed her forehead. She wrapped both arms around his neck. The woman smiled, not surprised, not embarrassed, just happy, like she had watched that moment many times before. My heart pounded so loudly. I couldn't hear anything else. And then the little girl leaned to his face and giggled and said one word, "Daddy." Everything around me disappeared. The traffic, the people, the noise, nothing mattered anymore. My husband and I never had a child. So, why was another little girl calling him daddy, like she's been doing it her whole life? I stood frozen, still holding my phone, still staring through the glass, and then my husband slowly turned his head, his eyes lifted, and for one terrifying second, I was almost certain he was looking straight at me.